Hello everyone, my name is Dr. Chris Reid from Macquarie University, and I'd love to talk to you today about biological inspiration from some fascinating ants for robotics-based applications. So today I'll be talking to you about two ways in which ants can build. One is called self-assembly, and the other is the unique method of extruded silk structures, which has many similarities to additive manufacturing. But first, what is self-assembly? Well, by working together, a group of ants can physically join their bodies together to form structures to serve the needs of the colony. They can become a set of scaffolding, it can become a bridge or a winch, a rope ladder, and in the case of the army ants, even a fully functioning house, which can have as many rooms as needed, fill any space as required to, and comes with its own air conditioning and built-in formidable defenses. Now, these structures can be quite large, especially from an ant's point of view. So it's really important to remember that unlike our large structures, these aren't being told what to do, and they don't know the extent of the structure or the environment. They arise entirely from interactions between individuals through very relatively simple activities and responding only to local information. Much of the work I'm going to be talking to you about is with one particular species of ant called weaver ants, because they have many unique traits that make them especially useful inspiration for space technologies. Not only that, I think they are the perfect candidate for the next organism to study in microgravity for a variety of reasons, which I will outline as we go. Now, one of these is their incredible grip strength. They have hooks on their feet, but they also have inflatable pads that act in a similar way to a gecko's foot, which gives them incredibly strong grip strength. Here you see a single worker ant is able to hold up a 7-gram baby bird, which is many orders of magnitude heavier than the ant itself. Weaver ants self-assemble into a variety of structures using this strength, including hanging chains, which act as rope ladders, and bridges, which can be either small or large, depending on the traffic that they have to accommodate. And weaver ants seem to have any means of attachment necessary they need. They can use their mandibles to grab any part of the bodies, even sometimes onto another nestmate's antenna. But you can see here they also use their hooks and these inflatable pads to get that really strong grip strength. And this generates some interesting questions about the architectural properties of these self-assemblies. Their ability to grab onto each other will really help in microgravity, because in the past, a lot of ant experiments which have been done in space, the ants simply lose their footing and end up floating around inside their containers. Now, a key structure that we've begun to study in the lab is unique to the weaver ants, and that is pulling chains. So the ants live in a tree canopy where they roll leaves together to form their arboreal nests up in the trees. And they do this by lining up with each other, grabbing onto each other and forming these pulling chains, which they then pull the leaves together and then bring up their larval sisters to use as tools and silk these leaves together into a solid structure. And they nest inside the cavity. We've started studying exactly how ants decide when and where to initiate, join, and leave these structures, and how that relates to. So this will be key in understanding how to program a team of robots to work together when building similar structures to achieve an end goal. So by watching these videos closely, we can manually figure out where these chains are, what's their composition, how many ants in each chain, what direction they're pulling at each frame in the video and each stage of the construction process. And this allows us to begin to understand how the group level effort corresponds to the success of the task. This is what that does. The crosshairs of the different chains that emerge and like what much, but it does get the job done. The next level of analysis is following the full history of individuals as they behave and interact during this task. And this can only really be done using computer vision technologies, assisted by each individual having their own individual barcode attached to them, and that being read by the machine. So we've started to successfully develop a laser manufacturing technique to make these really tiny tags, and then it's just the difficult task of actually sticking them on the ants. But in the end, we will have a fully functioning tracking system where we can track all individuals at all stages of the leaf construction task and figure out exactly how they function. In the meantime, we're working on the hanging chains that the weaver ants build, because they're a really accessible and functional structure. And this is work that's spearheaded by my PhD student, Daniela Carlesso. And he's really interested in getting as much individual and group level data as possible on these structures. So you can see how they find a food source and bring it back to colony. And he's begun to develop a model for how individuals receive and how this relates to the group level structure. This is done through high temporal resolution analysis of individual behaviour in these videos. Now we know that ants can be trained to move towards a visual target, and we're currently exploring how this training affects the self-assembly of chains. So in microgravity, obviously in normal gravity, ants can only build towards a target that's visually located below them. But in microgravity, the ants should be able to build a structure to any position in space. So observing how these ants use simple local rules to build structures that connect 2 points in space in microgravity could inform the future design of behavioural protocols and attachment mechanisms and swarm construction robots in space in the future. Now, apart from the fascinating behavioural concepts for understanding the simple interaction rules used by the ants in self-assembly, one of these is more flexible and more redundant and more complex individual robots that are designed for a single purpose. We just need rules, and the complex emergent behaviour that we see in the natural system can emerge in the swarm robots too. University have used similar rules from what the ants use in programming 1,000 of these tiny kilobot robots to demonstrate how complex predetermined shapes can arise from self-assembly via simple local level rules. We are currently building our own robot to have a swarm of slightly more capable robots that are able to grab onto each other in a similar way to how the weaver ants do and form these pulling chains. So here's a line of our first 5 prototype robots all grabbed onto each other. Obviously looking a bit messy, but this is the first generation. And one of the first most basic things that we want to test is how they can enhance their efficiency using teamwork. So first, we have one robot who's trying unsuccessfully to put spool in unison. They're able to move that way. This is obviously the early testing phase, and we're almost ready to have a swarm of these bots working for us. So in the end, this will be the swarm robot platform will be used to verify a lot of the modelling that we're doing about exactly how these sophisticated emergent properties come out from these very simple individual local level rules based on the weaver ant data. And the final application that I want to talk to you about is the potential of studying how weaver ants essentially 3D print their own extruded silk structures. Now in nature, colonies of weaver ants work together to pull leaves together in the canopy and then silk them closed using their baby sisters essentially as living glue guns, which you can see an ant worker doing here. But inside this cavity of this leaf ball, they also use their baby sisters as living 3D printer heads to make these really sophisticated looking silk galleries that have walls and floors and tunnels inside them, essentially filling this empty space and making it a functional nest structure. And these are all built using extruded silk from the larvae in a totally decentralized manner. Again, there are no leaders or blueprints here. So it would be great to send colonies of these ants, small colonies of these ants into space to build these silk structures in microgravity. As a bonus, the ants and larvae can be sent to space in sealed chambers and observed with no danger of escape. This would not only provide insight into how the ants use gravity as an input when collectively building their galleries, but also provide inspiration for an autonomous swarm-based approach to construction in space. Now, several startup companies are already jumping on the idea of swarm-based additive manufacturing, which has several advantages over conventional additive manufacturing. However, they all boil down up into chunks, and each of these chunks being assigned to a robot in the group in a sort of a centralized way. The advantage of the ants, of course, is that they can be sent to an unknown location in any group size and self-organize to build a functional structure that makes the best use of the local environment, all without any oversight or pre-planning whatsoever. And this is exactly what is needed on the space mission, especially with regards to autonomous habitat construction. And you can imagine a future swarm of ant-inspired bots 3D printing living chambers and labs in a Martian lava tube in anticipation of human arrival in just a few decades to come. Thank you for your attention, and I look forward to hearing from you.